We are all toxic. And I think that's just something that's hard for people to metabolize and digest that, ooh, I might be toxic. No, no, no. Everybody else is toxic. I am an angel. No, no, no. No, no, no.
Oh, hello. We're talking about my tits.
Most of the time.
Girl on girl on girl.
You would.
Like, stop picking up the fucking hot knife.
Fucking cares.
Right on track.
Ugh.
With a lot of money, I would do great fucking things.
But not in a good way.
Yikes.
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 Yikes. Where's the realness?
Yeah. Everything you want. Immaculate experience.
Back down.
You're getting, like, excited.
I do actually.
Leave the tequila.
Exactly.
Oh, she's so bad. Yo, people.
Yo, what's up? What's up?
Club
Happy
Unhinged.
podcast day. Meow.
What was that random? Club Unhinged is in the house.
Christine's going to be writing our song hooks from now on. She's going to write a jingle for us.
Ooh.
A Club Unhinged jingle. I'm down.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be aggressive and probably a lot of swear words, but it's okay.
Hey, it's very on brand for us. Very on
Totally.
brand. Yeah. Yeah. How you doing? What's up? We've got, well, we're not like matching today, but we've got like parallel stuff going on here. I've got a shirt that says no bra, but I am wearing a bra. And then Christine is wearing a white shirt with no bra. She's actually wearing no bra today.
I
Not
thought
me.
that was funny. We both show up in white. Your shirt says no bra, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm not wearing a bra either. You're like, no, actually, I'm wearing a bra. And I was like, what? And then I was like, how funny is it that you're wearing a shirt that says no bra, and you have a bra on, and I have a white shirt that says it's just nothing. And I'm not.
So good. So good.
I know. I was upstairs getting ready, and I was like, fuck it. I just need to find a shirt, and I'm just gonna put it on. I'm like, I'm not wearing a bra right now. And Steve's like, whoa, you're really trying to up your listenership, hey?
Yes.
I laughed. I was like, well, no. I said, yeah. I said, no, don't worry. You can't actually see.
No, exactly. Even when we do the video clips, like I can see your collarbone. Like, if I wasn't wearing a bra today, you'd really be able to see that in the video. But alas, friends,
It's just not a bra day. It's not a bra day.
Yeah.
Some days it's not underwear day. Some days it's not a bra day. Some days it's just
totally.
free balling. I came downstairs this morning to make some tea and was butt naked, and he's just like, "Are you doing the podcast?" I was like, I mean,
It's a new segment. Getting raw and naked with Club Unhinged.
all of a sudden we go viral. That's the cheap shot way for us to do it.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly. We have been joking about an OnlyFans since the beginning, the inception of Club Unhinged, so it's not totally off brand.
Totally.
But friends, that's not what we're talking about today.
Speaking of toxic patterns and thoughts. We're right on track.
Yeah, we want to
talking about
know if you're
toxicity day.
toxic.
Yeah, are you toxic?
Little Britney
You
Spears.
probably are to a degree, because we all are.
We all are. We are all toxic. And I think that's just something that's hard for people to metabolize and digest that, ooh, I might be toxic. No, no, no. Everybody else is toxic. I am an angel. No, no, no. No, no, no.
Well, what is that saying? Like, if you're pointing fingers out, like if you love to label people as toxic, then the likelihood of you having very similar or other toxic behaviors is very high.
Yes. Yes.
Right? You can't identify that. Just like in somebody, if you identify something that you love in somebody and a character trait, it's likely that you also have that.
Totally.
And, you either don't acknowledge it, or it's maybe, suppressed, or their bigness. But the same thing goes for the other ways. Like, whenever I'm judging somebody on something, I have to pause and be like, wait a minute, how do I do that same thing or something similar that I don't like and I reject within myself? And that's a fun game.
This is why we love shadow work so much, because it always leads us to exploring those threads that we so easily project onto other people. And we're like, wait a minute, where is that in me too? That's not as fun of a game, but it actually does become a fun game, because that's where you actually get your power back. And we're in the power quarter for the club right now. And so a lot of our conversations are about where we lose power and where we recultivate it. And if you can't look at these blind spots, if you can't look at the places that you are doing toxic shit, or you are, behaving in a way that's incongruent with your values, I mean, you're going to keep doing that shit, and you're going to keep getting results that are on par with those behaviors. And if you want a more expanded result, you've got to expand your horizons, so to speak. And you need to expand who you know yourself to be. You can't keep doing the same shit and expect life to change. That's just a recipe for like going fucking crazy.
Oh yeah, what they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not a vibe.
Yeah, not a vibe. I think we should link our Shadow Work 101 masterclass and then show notes. Well,
Yeah.
it's just honestly because it's such a that was one of our that was masterclass was insane. We had really good feedback from it, but it's just like we don't realize how we're all doing this. And we, like you said, we are really leaking our power. We all have toxic habits. We all have toxic traits. We all have things that we're doing that are not serving us. And it is so much easier to look outside of ourselves and to point fingers at everything that other people, things they're doing, culture, what's the, what are politicians doing? What is this doing? Like it's so easy to focus all of our energy and just be like, well, if that changed, I could be happy. Or if this person did this, then I would feel better. Or if the government was only this, then I would be able to X, Y, Z. Like, we all have these things within ourselves. We all have parts of our mind that is unconscious that we can't see, that are literally like blinders to us. And we want to talk about that today. We want to talk about your toxic patterns. And and not in a way of like
shaming.
We always say this: no shaming, blaming, or judging. But this is around awareness and introspection, so that we can start to shift these. We can start to play with them. We can start to bring them into light. Because once you do that, you see the origin of them, and you're like, oh, okay, well, cool. That makes a lot of sense based on what I've been through in my life or why I'm doing that thing. But if we don't see them, we literally can't start the transformation or change process. Like, it's impossible. We can't acknowledge and accept it and be like, oh shit. Oftentimes these traits will come up, or we'll see them, and all of a sudden we're like, ooh, let's put that back in the shadows, or I don't want to look at that. Bye. Back in the basement. Back in the basement you go, pattern. I don't want to see you. I don't want to look like a bad person. I don't want to admit that.
Yeah.
And so we spend a lifetime cutting off parts of ourselves that are just
wondering why we don't feel whole.
Yeah, totally. Why do I feel unhealthy? Why do I feel like I have coping mechanisms? Why am I addicted to everything? Why am I scrolling my phone constantly? Why am I looking outside of myself for everything? There's a fracturing that's happening inside of our bodies and inside of ourselves and our psyche. And so, of course, we don't feel at peace. Of course, we don't feel fulfilled, right? It's like we have a collective, a very sick and toxic collective right now. And yeah.
And I mean, transforming that on a global level really does start with the individual. Like, you can't have a mass shift in consciousness if the masses aren't shifting in consciousness. And for the masses to shift in consciousness, we as individuals need to take on this exploration. And sometimes, a toxic habit can be something healthy that's turned toxic, or that we're using, at a rate that is just, it's not good for our system anymore. Like, before we got on here, you had shared that you got this intuitive hit to like quit coffee. Like, coffee isn't inherently bad or toxic, but if we're using it, like the degree to which we're using it can be, if we're using it to like jumpstart our system, and our system is actually like, no, I need to rest. Can you please stop like injecting this like rocket fuel into me? Like, can you please just let me rest? Or this is actually like overstimulating my nervous system. That was the reason why I quit coffee. And it was very similar. It was back in 2020. Things were getting a little compressed, and this was before the pandemic happened, but like there was stuff in my family that was happening. And I could just feel how dysregulated I was already. And when I would have coffee, it would make my anxiety worse. And so what I decided to do was just cut out coffee. I'm like, I'm already feeling anxious. I'm already feeling destabilized. This isn't helping me. And so I'm going to cut it out temporarily. And then a few months later, the pandemic happened. And I was like, well, looks like I'm not bringing it back in because this is like turbo anxiety, turbo chaos. And then my relationship, I ended that. And so, like, it was just like one thing after the other. And I'm like, well, of course, my intuition was like, yeah, you need to cut that out. And not because it's bad or wrong, but because you're going to need like as much nervous system stability as possible in order to get through this chapter that you don't see coming. Like none of us saw that pandemic coming. And as a leader in the community, I'm like, well, I can't just like sit here and do nothing. And so that's when the Sunday self love services started. And I don't know that I would have been able to do that. And you came on as a teacher in one of those services. And I think that's when like our very first collaboration happened, was way back in 2020. And like in order to hold the magnitude of that, like my nervous system needed to be stable and regulated, and coffee was just not helping me get there. And it's now 5 years later, and I've probably had maybe 10 coffees in the last 5 years. And I drink decaf. Like I love the taste of coffee, so I drink
Yeah.
decaf. But caffeinated coffees, each time I have them, they fuck my energy and I don't feel good. The only caveat is when I'm in Europe and I'm drinking coffee in Europe, and it doesn't impact my body the same way. It's like I have more availability, and it's probably because I don't have the regular stressors of my day to day life. And, you know, I think it's just an important thing to take that temperature with our habits and the things that we're doing, because something can be really healthy in one season of our life, and then we move into a different season and all of a sudden that thing is no longer in service. So taking a regular audit of our habits and our patterns and the things that we use to kind of cope with life, and maybe doing a little investigation of like, is this actually in service? Like, am I drinking coffee because I love the taste of it and it metabolizes through my body really easily? Or am I using it to jack myself up because I don't actually have the energy to meet the demands of my life? And that's a much bigger inquiry and a much bigger conversation to be having. But ultimately, like, if we want to be non-toxic in the rest of our lives, it's a really important inquiry, because if we're burning ourselves out, if we're using these healthy things and like using them in a way that's no longer healthy, again, we're depleted underneath that. And if we're depleted underneath that, chances are how we're going to show up in our day-to-day life and our day-to-day relationships is going to be a bit compromised, and you run a higher risk of essentially being toxic in those dynamics when you're not well resourced.
Well, it is so true. And I like to explore my relationship with everything a lot, right? And so that's the thing. Like, my intuition recently was pinging in, and it was like, you're going to go off coffee again. And I was like, I don't know if I'm quite ready yet. I really, really enjoy my coffee. And I've never been a huge coffee drinker. I've never, been the kind of person who has like 6-7 cups a day. Back in the day when I had adrenal fatigue and had the studio still, I had a lot of stress, and I was drinking a lot more coffee back then. French press just fucks me. Like, I don't know what it is about French press coffee. It's just like makes me so sketchy. So I started going to like half. I cut it out, and then I went into like half, and then back to full. And even though I only have one, I have like an Americano misto in the morning. It's sort of like my treat. I go to the coffee shop. It's an expensive habit, but it's something that I have loved. It's when I notice there's almost this energy that's like, you have to go this morning, and you're going to have it. And it's just a habit and a pattern. So I find myself driving to the coffee shop no matter what. And whenever things get a little sticky like that, where my intuition either tells me you need to slow down or stop that, I don't like to have these like hard things like I'm never going to drink coffee again. I used to do that a lot. I used to throw in the like I'm never going to X, Y, Z. But as soon as I do that, there's a part of me who's like the rule breaker is
Get
like
fucked.
the fuck you are, and guess what? I'm gonna make you go into that coffee shop. So I just like to explore things, and I feel like right now the coffee, like you said, it's I have a lot going on in my life, and there's just been even more recent stuff coming up, and I know that my intuition has been guiding me to like give me that heads up, like, hey, you're gonna need a lot more resources, you're gonna need a lot more nervous system regulation, and the coffee is, again, it's just like a number and a distractant. So it's time to go back. It's time, because I know that in this next phase, I'm gonna be really needing to feel a lot, to let the energy move through, to let the emotions process, because I know myself. And if I'm just going and I'm super busy and don't set aside time, it's like the last thing my system wants to do is sit there and be like, I wonder how I'm feeling today. Oh, all those hard things. Oh, that fight you got with your kids, or, the screaming or the whatever. It's like, that's not there's like a million other things I need to be doing. And so I find that what happens though is that, of course, we have all these unprocessed emotions, these things that have happened, these like triggers throughout the day. And if we're not with them, then they just stack. And then we wonder why we feel, again, lethargic, tired, overwhelmed, totally dysregulated. Is because our nervous system's like, you have so many like high emotions, you have so many unprocessed and undigested experiences that have happened throughout your day, whether it's work or whether it's kids or whatever it is, this person in traffic. And so it's like keeping the vessel very clean, and especially as a conscious entrepreneur and somebody who helps other leaders, you and I both help leaders, conscious entrepreneurs, it is really important for you and I also to be at the top of our game. That doesn't mean we never drink coffee, it doesn't mean we never drink, it doesn't mean we don't go and have fun, but it does mean that it, as a baseline, as like an 80%, we need to be living really like great lives where we're regulated in order to lead and to do the service that we want to do. Because if we're super depleted, we're not going to be giving it our all. We're not going to be able to produce. We're not going to be able to be, conduits, channels, whatever we want to call them, right? So it's like, I really am excited to re-explore my relationship with coffee, because I've gone on and off of it. Like, I just want to know, okay, I'm going to go off of it. I'm going to have a little meltdown. My brain's
a little detox.
Like even this morning, a little detox, right? Even this morning, my boyfriend was like, I'm going to, because he had a rough day yesterday and was feeling like anxious. And he's like, my body didn't feel right. And he's like, I'm going to go off coffee. And I was like, hey, I'm going with you. And it's been like I've been waiting for this anyways. And so, my brain initially threw a little tantrum. It was like, well, just go to the coffee just today.
We'll start tomorrow.
Just one more day. Start tomorrow. And I was like, I know that voice. I love you. Bless you.
No.
Bless you, little thing. You cute little gremlin. But no, I'm not. I love you. But, today's the day, and I'm stronger than because our body becomes the unconscious mind, right? Like, if we're not conscious and making conscious choices and showing ourselves that we're the drivers of our life and we have choice and we have sovereignty, our body is the unconscious program. It literally is like, no, Christine, you get up, you check, go check your phone, go and, whatever, the kids, deal with them if you need to, then go and get your coffee, then you go do this. And it's just like we have these set routines. It's like throwing in a CD every morning, the same, or record. It's like the same autopilot thing that we do. We don't even realize it, right? We get up, we get the same mug, we go the same route to work, or the same, whatever it is, and then we do the same thing, and we wonder why we're like, a lot of people are like zombies. Is because they're not even really living. They're not really even in their lives. They're not in the driver's seat of their lives. And so obviously, the work that we do is helping people come back alive, come back into consciousness, but, being the driver's seat of their life, designing a life that they're obsessed with, and it starts with identifying and looking at some of the habits that are not serving us. Because if we want these big, expensive lives, it's going to cost us some of these habits and some of these coping 100%. Mechanisms and some of these like unhealthy things that we're doing that we don't even realize. They seem normal because we've done them so often, or the people or, our friends or other people co-sign them. Like, this is why it's so important to be surrounded by community, to be surrounded by other, women, people who are on the path, who are designing their lives on purpose. Because if you're not, the people around you are like, oh no, you're fine. Like, why are you cutting out coffee? You're so stupid. Why are you cutting out alcohol if you have, if you feel like you have a problem? Like, it's fine. That's what we do, bro. That's what we do. And so, like, being around people who are going to really nurture and be protective of your
Yes.
vision is so
Yes.
important, right? Like that's why you and I have put ourselves in communities and places and spaces, and we invest in things, and we put ourselves into high level containers because we're like we need to make sure that we're there. We're always seeing the highest vision for our clients. We're always seeing the highest vision for the women in the club, that we can, we're holding to their highest standard. And it's amazing when you hold somebody to a high standard, they do calibrate to your belief in them,
100%.
right? It's like it's a timeline shift, it's a drop, right? Like how quickly people can transform and change when they have somebody in their corner, in their field, who's like, no, I can't co-sign that. I love you, but I can't co-sign that. You know how amazing you are? And we need that. We need that. We need people to help us see the things that we're doing that are really unhelpful.
Yeah.
That are oftentimes coping mechanisms, right? They're just little habits that become coping mechanisms over time, and that's why we want to explore them.
I think that's a really good point to just bring out in the open, that even if it is a more toxic pattern, so let's say it's not coffee, it's something like I watch porn every night, and one could assume that that is a fairly toxic habit. Like it really fucks with intimacy, like it messes with your brain chemistry, with your availability emotionally, like especially if you're using it as an addictive coping mechanism like that. But again, instead of like looking at it through the lens of shame, we want to look through the lens of curiosity, and we want to look and see like, well, what's the pain underneath that we're trying to resolve, or that we're trying to metabolize, that we don't really have an access to. And that's why we're using this thing to kind of jump out of the body, disassociate, seek pleasure, find the thing that feels good, even if it's just for a split second. Like we can kind of look from a top down position and say like, okay, we can see that there's pain here, and this habit of watching porn every night is an attempt to alleviate the pain. So instead of getting stuck on the habit, we want to go into like, well, why the pain? And Gabor Mate talks about this a lot in his work with addiction, because if we boil it down, like these habits that are really unhealthy, there is an addictive element to them. And we're doing it in order to avoid something or to move towards a certain sensation or feeling. So, and a lot of that has to do with there's a big pain point that hasn't actually metabolized, and we don't know what to do with it. And so we're doing anything we know how to do to either minimize the pain, minimize the suffering, or get some semblance of sweetness in our day. And so we want to have compassion for ourselves, and these, like if I look at it like that, I'm like, wow, like my system is so intelligent. Like it's literally trying to help me survive. I've got this thing that I don't know how to metabolize, and it's like, girl, I got you. Let's move in this direction where you get like a little hit of joy, or a little hit of pleasure, or just a little bit of something different, so that you can kind of keep your head above water. And ultimately, like in the club, we're moving you from being like head above water to like you are fully functional in the water. You can deep dive, you can get out of the pool, you can do the backstroke, the front stroke, you can cannonball. Like you have all of the skills to maneuver in and out of the pool, in and out of the water. We're no longer afraid. We're not like, treading water, please, 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 like let me not drown. And when we look at the pain that's underneath, and I think that's why, the world is such a mess, because there are a lot of fractured people. There are a lot of people who are in a lot of pain, and that pain has never been properly witnessed. It has never been witnessed in a compassionate way. Like this is another thing about metabolizing addiction and metabolizing pain. And even your shadow material, it needs to be compassionately witnessed. So someone who has the tools and the self-awareness to hear your story and not go into fix it mode, not go into I need to change it, not do a positivity bypass on it and be like, well, everything happens for a reason. It's like,
what's the higher purpose on this? And Even
That's
though
true.
it
It's
is
true.
true, but it's not.
But
Not right now.
like, if
Not right
that's where
now.
you start, and this is where people get fucked because they try and start the process there, but that's like 20 steps down the road. And most people actually need their story witnessed compassionately 3 times. 3 times for it to actually, like, you get the sense of like, okay, it's been seen, it's been heard, it's been, embraced by another human, and now I can digest it. And so, even with that framework, you can't just listen compassionately once, but you also can't listen indefinitely. See, this is where it gets tricky because sometimes people want to milk that. They're like, ooh, this gets me attention. Milky,
Milky, milky, milky, milky. I want to milk this pain. I love
because
it.
it gets me attention, it gets me validation, it gets me a false sense of belonging. And so if I just keep leading with my wound story or leading with my victim consciousness, I am going to wrangle in all the rescuers who want to save me from my pain. But little do they know, I have no intention of ever metabolizing this because I get too much out of like using it. And so again, if you are someone who is the compassionate witness, you have to have that boundary of like 3 times. 3 times is reasonable. Once we pass that threshold, now we're moving into, this emotionally manipulative and sticky territory. And that's where you have to put the boundary up and say, no, we've talked about this. It's been witnessed. I've heard you. And this is what I've heard every single time. And I know that was hard, and it's time to move forward from that. It's time to heal. It's time to expand. It's time to move in a new direction. Because again, like when someone is milking it, they're just trying to get their need for connection and belonging met. Again, like that's nothing bad, that there's nothing wrong with that, but how they're doing it is going to ensure that that need never gets met. Because it's not true belonging when we're extracting and using our story as a power play over someone. Versus if I let go of that wound story, if I let go of that identity, who will I be without it? And what if no one likes me? That's the fear. And that's why they milk it. Because they don't believe like who they are underneath. And like once they untangle from all of that, that they will be someone worth loving. Which is such a lie. Like, of course they're worth loving. And, of course they're magnificent and wonderful and an extraordinary human being, outside of the framework of that identity. But the identity doesn't know that. The identity just knows, like, I need to stay in play. And it'll have all sorts of, like, trapdoors and tricks up its sleeve to keep itself in play. And so this is why it's important to be in community, because if you're just going at it alone, you can delude yourself a lot. Like our self-delusion is off the fucking charts the majority of the time. But then when we have people in our corner who are calling us to our greatness, like you said, and who see that version and speak to that version and, expect a higher standard from us, all of a sudden, like we start to learn, like, oh, maybe I don't have to go at it alone. And it's through their reflection that I get to know who I truly am. So you actually need other people, and especially the people who are going to reflect to you your greatness and who are going to stand for it and who are not going to like accept your bullshit and accept all of your excuses and the ways that you play small and the ways that you try and hook for attention and energy. They're just not going to be down with it. And instead, they're going to, keep speaking life into these more expansive parts of you so that you can get to know those parts within yourself. It's this is, again, like it always comes back to the club. Like, this is why it's set up the way that it's set up. You're not lone wolfing it. You're literally reconfiguring in an intentional community. I mean, that sounds so barfy when I say it out loud. It's not like the spiritual intentional community, but it is intentional in the sense of like we are very, you know, clear on the type of woman that comes into the club, and we're I'd say we're pretty strict on that. Like we're not just going to let anyone come in unless they have a certain caliber of character and a commitment to something greater. You know, we're not just taking anyone into the field because this is such intentional work. This is such, sacred work that you can't just have all sorts of energy pulling and creating chaos. And so we are very clear of who gets to come into the club for that reason, so that when you're in there, you've got a group of women who are now your biggest fans and your biggest champions. Like I've never seen anything like this. It's everything I ever wanted our social circle to be, but it never was able to materialize quite this way. And in terms of like people who really cheer and champion each other, and they're also willing to be vulnerable and open and be like, I'm not okay, and they allow like the full range of their human to come out to play. And I think it's just so beautiful. But like the level of cheering and championing, it's unprecedented. Like I don't know how we did that. We're gonna have to deconstruct it at some point, but like we did good.
Whenever I go in and read the comments in my networks and seeing them like celebrating things or asking for support on something or sharing about, what's going on for them, seeing the comments is unbelievable. Like their comments are rich and they're powerful. And I think it's been so healing. I think a lot of, the women who've come in who have, either had to be, they're high achieving, they've had to be hyper independent. A lot of them, there's been a lot of this, like, I have to get it all done, and to allow themselves to sink in and to lean into community and other women who are seeing them and supporting them. I think it's very healing, like even that component, without even any of our calls, you and I's calls, the mentorship calls and the workshops and the live, how much live things, we do every single month. It's like that alone is extremely healing. And I love what you said about, you were talking about earlier about the club and how you're drowning. Like there's such a difference of living a life where your head is just above water and you're just trying not to drown.
Yes.
And what we're seeing is, and that can be even if you're very successful. Like just putting your head above water does not mean that you're like a fucking, you're stupid and you can't do anything, you need cool shit in your life. It's like a lot of people, we have a lot of these unhealthy patterns or coping mechanisms, and that can be things like overdoing it, over functioning, over giving, having no boundaries, not saying no. Like, even what's recently happened with me, which I'm sure I'll share later on a podcast. I'm really in it right now, but like, it's really, even this morning as I was like getting ready, I was like, this is really going to have to call me into tightening up my time, tightening up my client sessions, tightening up everything, because my time is about to get a lot shorter with things, and I'm going to need to adjust and get a lot more powerful and a lot stronger if I'm going to hold 100%. This, right? And so there was even that where I was like, okay, and that's an invitation for me to look at the ways that I've been really lax with certain things, and then that lax energetic bleeds into my time and other things, and then that creates chaos, and then that creates overwhelm. And so it's like seeing how the things that we're doing daily, the micro things, the choices, the decisions, the things we let slide, like those things compound. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we feel like we're overwhelmed or we have no time, and then we complain like, oh, I wish I could do that, program, or I wish I could do that course or that masterclass or whatever it is, and then I wish I could like go on that retreat. And I'm like, okay, well, if you collected all of those moments where you're dicking around or you're spending time in overwhelm or overthinking or overdoing it or saying yes to things that are really no's to you, like you would collect all of that time back, and you'd be really clean, and you'd be a lot tighter with your with your living a life with intention. And we want you, like you said earlier, we don't want you to be just keeping your head above water. Like, what kind of life is that? Like, we didn't come to earth to be like, I'm just gonna live paddle and I guess survive, and then I'm just gonna dog paddle and just pray that I can keep my head above water. We're like, we want you like not only swimming, synchronized swimming, feeling like a
Mm-hmm.
badass, like whatever floats your boat out there. We want you to, like, every time you swim, it's because you're jumping off your yacht.
Yes. Yes.
Like, like we want you on the
Mm-hmm.
yacht. We want you, like, with whatever floats your boat, rock, like house music, having whatever food floats your boat. But you're like traveling in the freaking
Yes.
Mediterranean, being like, "Ooh, I think I want to dip," and you know how to fucking
Mm-hmm.
swim,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, you know how to swim. And I even heard this morning as well, while I was in it, I heard this voice, and it was like, because I was just, of course, my brain was going into like, oh my god, what does this
Mm-hmm.
mean for me?
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be insane, like all of these things. And even though they were present, there was this very strong voice that was like, Christine, you would not have been dealt this hand if you couldn't
Mm-hmm.
handle it. So, like, this is a time for you to double down in faith and trust
Yep.
into like your capacity. And this is a time for you to like grow up and to really
Mm.
clean up who you are as a
Mm.
businesswoman, as a mother, as a person. And I was like,
Fuck yeah. Let's go.
but
Yeah.
that's the thing, like some of those habits and some of those patterns and some of those things I've been doing and just, you know, letting slide by are going to have to
Mm-hmm.
change if I'm going to be this up-leveled version of myself who can hold what I'm going to be, that what the universe, God
Yeah.
source has dealt me, right? And that's, I'm I remember this morning I was like, mission
Mm-hmm.
accepted, like,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, if this is the thing, or I need the
Yep.
resources, the support. And it was another big thing that is really coming through, is around me leaning on people for
Yes.
support and
Yes.
asking for help, because it's something I've always struggled with throughout my entire life. So this is like a forced
Mm-hmm.
way to be like,
It's time.
yeah, if you, it's time to lean on people, to be open to community, to actually share yourself with, you know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, I can't stay in my story that like
Yeah.
nobody
I'm
cares,
all
or that I'm all
alone.
alone, or all these pieces, these very young, like infantile pieces, or like
Sure.
infancy, that are still not, just they're very minor, but they can show up in
Mm-hmm.
certain ways. And so it just feels like I've been seeing fucking 555 everywhere in the last like week. It's like 555, which means like big changes coming, and I'm like, oh,
Okay.
okay, cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. All right, I'm like, oh, big change, what's that? And so it's just like, it feels, there's this like, oh my god, and there's also this like sinking in, and I don't know, it's like, you and I talk about how the club is like the training
Mm-hmm.
field. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
arena for your life. It's like the place you come to become so strong and so powerful that when life calls you and says, it's time for you to come into the big
Yep.
leagues, it's time for you to come into the playing, you're actually, it's your time to
Yep.
play now. We aren't met with
Mm-hmm.
collapse, or I don't know how I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
handle this, or total overwhelm. We're met with what came through this morning, which is like, all right, like,
Yeah.
mission accepted, because I've been training
Yes.
for this
Yes.
daily. I've been training through this, through initiation, you and I building this business of
Mm-hmm.
the club, coaching clients, owning a gym. Like, everything I've been through has been like sort of
Yeah.
preparing me for this moment. So there's like this, like, okay. And I think that's what we do really beautifully in the club,
Mm-hmm.
is we're preparing you to feel so rock solid that whatever life brings you, you can fucking handle it. And not only can you handle it, you've got other bad bitches by your side, you've got community, you've got support, you feel so nourished that like, you're like, I don't have to do this alone
Yes.
anymore, and I can handle whatever comes
Fuck
my way.
yes. Fuck yes. And I mean, this fits so perfectly with the mini course that I'm teaching in Panther this week. It's literally on becoming unfuckable with. And yesterday's session was the alchemization of overthinking, and how like overthinking often takes us in the direction of worst case scenario. And then I walked everyone through a process of how to alchemize that into best case scenario, and like really building the discipline in training your body, your chemistry, your nervous system, your mind into defaulting into best case scenario thinking. So in your case, like, instead of like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, which could be true, or what also could be true is that this is the best thing that has ever happened to you. And if we use that frame, how we show up to the circumstances of our life will change, and will show up in a way that we can actively create our most fuck yes life. And again, like, when we get these experiences that seem at first like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, And you got to sit with that. You got to metabolize it. You got to feel your feelings about it. But we have to be mentally disciplined to not take that and run in the direction of worst case scenario thinking, because if you marinate there, that is what you will create. And you've got to build the stamina, you've got to build the emotional fortitude and the mental faculties to be able to like be so disciplined with the impulse to move in the worst case scenario and then move it in a different direction. And that takes a lot of internal power to do. So if that is something that you really want to rev up, like I 10 out of 10 recommend getting into Panther, because those are daily touch points where we remind you of who the fuck you are and what you're here to do. And we've got like 2 mini courses a month. We've got some wildcard episodes in there. And then you get a longer form workshop that we've done in the past. And plus, I think there's like 160 episodes that we did last year, and you can use them as a daily oracle. So you can just like flip through and be like, what's the message I need today? Listen. Those ones are all under 10 minutes. So they're easy to integrate into your day. So we would highly recommend you check that out. You can also, stay tuned. We're going to be announcing our next shed very soon, so that you'll be able to get into that. And we'll be back next week. And Christine, unless there's anything else you want to add in for today.
No. I'm done. I feel great. I feel like that's it.
That's all we had to say.
That's all
we had to say. So if you're toxic,
Yeah.
What's so funny? At one point you like referenced like being stronger. I was like, oh, Britney Spears like really took us on an adventure today. We started with like toxic, and then she's got a song called Stronger. Now I'm stronger than yesterday.
Oh my God.
So like, again, like if you are in that spot where like these toxic patterns are running, like it's okay. Like we want to use them in a way that leads to you being stronger, that leads to you being more expansive. And that really boils down to the way that you're seeing it and framing it right off the jump. So take some time, play with that today. If you need more help with that, get into Panther and we will help you with that. We love you.
Thank you for joining us.
See you soon, friends. Bye.
Bye.
All in all, we want to say thank you for being here. We love and appreciate you so much. And if you liked today, give us a 5-star rating, and we'll see you next week.
And share it. If you know somebody who needs this in their life, share this shit. Abundance goes round and round. We love you.
We love you. Bye.